Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Righteous Force, 10th Man, the Adam Meakin, Brian's Logic, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded. So welcome one and all. And Arwin, who's joining.
Good morning, hello, everybody.
Had a reasonable time.
Afternoon, everyone.
Morning,
guys.
Yeah.
Good to have you all. We're going to see. Hello. Let's keep it at no offence to Baldwin today, but we're going to try and keep housekeeping concise, so we'll get through it in a reasonable amount of time. So, everyone ready?
Fire away.
Ready.
Yes.
Any evidence of a physical
No.
Let's try that one more time without Neil immediately ruining it. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
Yes, mathematically
No.
it exists.
No, we need it physical. It needs to block the bottoms of buildings and boats, not a math equation. It won't block it.
It does
Math is
block
not
buildings
evidence.
and boats. It just doesn't block it optically.
What did you not
Okay,
hear?
thank you.
No Baldwin today? Are you deaf or what?
It's
I'm
like,
hurrying it up.
it's like dangling
They
a carrot
traded
in
in
front
the
of him, isn't it?
geometric horizon for a refracted one.
Sorry, say that again, whoever that was, Creation Bear.
They traded in their geometric horizon for a refracted horizon.
No,
Yeah,
but it's
but-
still a geometric horizon. It's just being refracted optically, right? Because that's the field of where refraction does things. But geometrically, it's still blocking things. Optically, it just isn't.
You're
Well,
going to get
then that's
blocked.
not
Let's just
evidence.
negate all of Arwin's doublespeak. Okay. What
Hey
we're
Nathan,
talking
maybe
about
it was
is-
like that Audi you had for a little while. They just leased the geometric horizon. They had to give it back.
There was never a geometric horizon till he saw otherwise, because the geometric horizon would be a hill that gets in the way of the boat or building. The assertion is a geometric assertion. The mathematics are the geometry of the hill that gets in the way. Arwin saying, no, it's a refracted hill. Okay, hills don't move beyond the position they were formerly in front of. In other words, if there's a hill in the way of your view, you won't wake up the following day and find that the hill's behind the thing it was formerly blocking. Now, since 1st January 2020, we exposed that the horizon is not a geometric physical blockage to things in the distance as asserted in the maths. Now, the response to that is that it's only refraction. Well, if it's refracted, it is not physically blocking your view like a hill would. And that's the claim. So the anti-flat earth response of refraction doesn't help the globe earth claim that there's a hill in the way of boats and buildings.
It is physically blocking it, though, just not optically.
If it's physically blocking it, then things would be in the way and they wouldn't be behind them and a different day, would they, Arwin? Black Swan.
Well, if you would see things where they really are, yes. But you don't. because of terrestrial refraction.
Okay, so we've now disseminated this into you can't trust your own eyes. Yeah, okay. If there's a hill blocking my view of something, it's never going to be the case, ever, in any circumstances, that the thing behind the hill is in front of the hill. That's what the black swan shows. Therefore, the horizon's not a hill in the way.
Both
7
of
over
those.
6.
Yeah, hold on, but the horizon, even geometrically, is arbitrary once the optics start shifting, right? So
No,
yeah,
seven-
you would
No.
expect the
Let's
geometric
just address
horizon
that
to
so we
be
can get to
in
John.
front
No.
of the
Let's
visual
just...
horizon.
He's not going to stop.
No, he's
No.
not going to stop. Ban him. Ban him.
No, 7 over 6R is not refraction. 7 over 6 of a radius is not refraction. It's a physical change in the size of the globe, not refraction of light. It doesn't involve air or pressure, air pressure or temperature over a distance. It's a physical change, a mathematical physical change in the size of the globe's radius, expanding out the globe's size.
Thank you.
Right. Well,
And
at
it
best,
takes
we
place-
got the radius slightly
Alwyn,
wrong.
can you
I
just
mean,
stop now? You're just deliberately pissing me off. I've asked to be concise. Other people now want to talk because you've expanded it out in spite of me asking it to be remaining concise. But you're now rumpusing people. You've done it to Brian, you've done it to John, you've done it to 10th. Can you just let other people get in, as fun as you might find this?
Yeah, I was going to say the geometric horizon and the refracted horizon that they talk about, they both exist below surface level, so we don't really have to worry about those.
Oh dear.
Well, they actually have to expand out, like they call it 7 over 6 of a radius. They call it 7 over 6R, and they gave it the term standard refraction. It's like, what a really sneaky little low-life term. Oh, it's just standard refraction. People go, it's just everyday, refraction of light. No, it's not. They expand out the radius so much so that it always has to appear flat regardless of how far away the horizon is. So it has to appear flat to you for it to be a globe. That's the way they've worked it. Because they have to physically change the size of their globe. Now, none of that works with latitudes or Polaris or how they actually originally calculated the radius, but they still have to do that. That's how ridiculous it is.
Bunch of sneaky bastards, right, Brian?
Well, it's pretty sneaky calling it standard refraction. That was a good one.
Well, you got a lot of problems there because they cite Al-Biruni going to the top of the mountain after he measured the Earth flat using the mountain first, and a flat baseline. And then from the mountain, he has a depression angle to the horizon and did a little math and says the Earth is this, and there's our 3959. But according to Baldwin, it moves. One day it's this, another day could be that. So all of their figures that are based on the Earth with a radius of 3959, and Christian Huygens and Kepler and all these guys who make up all their astronomical distances and equations is based on 3959. But if Al-Biruni would go up on that mountain a day later, or maybe even 2 hours later, and the weather changes, now the Earth is bigger. In fact, the black swan makes the radius go all the way to the moon. So we can tell the whole thing is fake.
Well, Al-Biruni could never have gotten a radius that matched 3959 because 7 over 6 of it, or what they call standard refraction, is a constant. It always has to be at least 7 over 6R.
Agreed.
And more. It's
no,
even been called, 1 second, just let me finish. It's even be called infinite over 6R by Rivet.
After telling him off, I've now got no choice but to reintroduce him thanks to Brian. So that's called the Arwinian paradox.
What's the other term for standard refraction? Think about it.
Terrestrial.
Terrestrial refraction. What is the terrestrial? What's that?
Earth. Terra is Earth.
Yeah. Would it be physical? Earth?
Earth is
terrain?
physical. Terra or terrestrial refraction is not. It's 7 over 6 of the radius in standard form, otherwise known as standard refraction. They're the same thing.
Yeah, but you're missing the word. The term terrestrial refraction. What does that actually mean?
It means Earth refraction, but it isn't. It's just 7/6 of the radius value stretched out in a model that doesn't exist
Yeah,
in
but
reality.
terra firma.
Yeah, it's a
change
sneaky
in the
trick.
size of terra firma.
Yeah, you're saying it's a sneaky
Terrestrial
trick because they're
refraction.
calling it Earth refraction. That's its title.
Yeah,
It's like Earth
but
refraction.
it is an expansion, or it is a physical expansion, mathematically a
Nathan
physical
said.
expansion of the globe. So terrestrial refraction is an oxymoron because
I
it's
say
not
let 'em have
refraction.
it.
Well, it's like spherical refraction, like sphere-Earth refraction. Basically.
I say let them have it because
No,
it
no,
takes
no.
place below
Brian,
Brian,
surface
hold
level
on.
anyway.
Just don't whistle past this point. Yeah, what we call the paradox is the full do-si-do circle taken in its logical consistency of the black swan, rebuttal of refraction, and then that leading to the inability to derive an R value from a refracted horizon, right? That's the Arwinian paradox. But what you're saying is something slightly different. You're saying just terrestrial refraction, just to say those words, is an oxymoron. Forget getting to the paradox. Just cut it off at the legs. You can't say Earth refraction when you're talking about you're bending a radius at 7/6 of that radius value. That's a stretching out of the ground and nothing to do with quote-unquote refraction. Therefore, Earth refraction, what? You're talking about the light deviating from straight through different mediums. If you're talking about Snell's law and actual refraction, how has Earth got anything to do with it? You know, you're not looking through the Earth. So it's an oxymoron. That's Brian's point. So rather than letting them get all the way through the black swan after asserting that you've got a hill in the way, and then pointing out that it's beyond where the hill would be, in fact, as 10th points out, it goes all the way to the moon if you calculate where that horizon's situated, right? Why let them get there? What's that you say, refraction? No, that's an oxymoron. When you strap on the word terrestrial.
So
Yeah,
you
but
can't
all-
stretch the Earth.
But all of this that we're talking about takes place below surface level anyway, right?
Correct.
well, no, because terrestrial refraction.
In the maths, that's correct.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in the maths is correct, but terrestrial refraction is claimed to be what we see, which is an expansion of the globe.
Not in the math or the model.
No, hold on. Let me just
It's not
rephrase what
gonna
Brian's
work.
saying, because he's right. He's just phrased it wrong. It's an expansion of the spherical dingleberry below the surface level in the maths. That's what Brian's saying. The circle that is represented in the maths that's called globe, with a tangent point horizon, formerly Earth curve, blocking it in geometric terms, that gets bigger when you apply 7/6R, which they call terrestrial refraction. But what John's response is, so you're saying they blow up the dingleberry a little bit below the line that comes out from your eye line and the line that is the surface level, that the dip of the globe Earth model horizon that we don't see because it only exists in the maths is below surface level.
Yeah, so even if you give them refraction, it's still taking place below surface level. And what is the horizon if not where the sky meets the surface?
Yeah, we've only got one horizon, and the horizon in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator isn't marked out at surface level. It's marked with an X and labelled horizon as the bulge/hill that gets in the way. On screen now would be that tangent point. That's what's blocking your view of the boat in this diagram. That's an Earth curve maths. And what Brian's saying is the circle that's drawn, that you have the boat, or in this case, the circle that is Simondan's head, that gets bigger. But the tangent line, albeit with them in this diagram twisting it around from the top point, which is where they normally depict it, well, if they had it gravity inclusive and you at the top point, relatively speaking, to the rest of the sphere dingleberry below you, you've got two lines. One is the eye line, your line of sight, which is parallel to the surface level, also depicted and labelled in the maths. It has to be. These are derived from angles, tangent points, all relating to that surface level. So you can't not have it. The globe Earth requires the flat Earth. The irony's delicious.
So
Wow.
if you go back to
There it
that, if you just go back, Nathan, to that diagram where you had the
No.
ship there with the guy looking at the ship,
I
can
can't.
you do
I can't.
that?
I
All
can't.
right.
Well, I can, but it's
Alright,
a
that doesn't
2-hour
matter.
slideshow. I mean, I can have a go. No,
Yeah.
I didn't do
See
too
the way,
bad.
see the way it's straight. See the way it flattens out. See the way the ship flattens out behind it, the red part.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like another little admission. A little admission that that's what we see. but they have this little bulge in between the person and the ship. It's a load of nonsense.
I never noticed that.
It's may I please? It's surplus to requirement.
Yeah, the dingleberry with 7/6 inflation or otherwise is surplus to requirements because all the angles are going to come from surface level. Surface level may give you a derivation with a dingleberry that might or might not expand with 7/6R. Surface level where it's at though, that's what you're using. Why? Well, because the surface level's the surface level. And it's flat. And it's got sod all to do with the dingleberry dangling beneath in a globe earth mathematics that asserts that the horizon's below the surface level. We've only got one horizon. We certainly don't have a horizon below surface level.
There's another.
So what?
There's
Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's all right. There's another point here that John's point and Brian's point meet up at. So according to their version, the higher you go in the mountain, then you're going to be able to see stars that you couldn't have seen if you were at sea level. Really now. So Brian showed us that, and it was he labored in this presentation and he did a good job. He shows that the aviator with the navigator with the bubble sextant 5 miles up has the exact same star, same measurements as the guy on the boat at sea level. Interesting. I thought you were going to see more stars.
Did you want to say something specific about this one, Brian? I've paused it on it.
No, well, I do have something to say about that, but this is actually nonsense when they show this bending light thing from the person's eye. That's not terrestrial refraction.
No, correct.
It's not. That's also a force. It's like a double bait and switch they do, whereas they switch from what is refraction to trying to claim to this bending light thing that they're trying to claim is refraction after they've talked about actual refraction, Snell's law, etc. Then they switch to this, but that's a double bluff because the reality of their model is not this either. It's that Simon's Dan's head would just hit the right side of his head that we can see there would just flatten out.
So it's a double con.
It's a double con, yeah, a double con.
Well, that's where it falls apart, isn't it? The web of deceit normally, as it expands, becomes more flimsy. And in this case, we've got the expansion of the assertion in the first instance of heliocentrism, derived from elevation angle measurements to Polaris, giving you equators and giving you hard and fast globe Earth geometry with hills getting in the way. Then at some point, there's the necessity for them to flatten out the land a bit, which can only imply that people were looking a bit further. So I don't know when the introduction of terrestrial refraction came about and became prevalent in the heliocentric worldview, but that just seems like a gaping chasm opening up from what was originally just a crack. Oh, the globe mathematics in their geometric assertions don't actually match what we see? We've got to do something about this. Let's add in another layer of bullshit. But the bullshit's just been pulled apart now by us in the mathematics.
Well, they were never able to account for the technological optional curve for the general public, for us to have relatively cheap cameras that can look incredibly far away with a lot of detail, right? They never really accounted for all that, just like NASA technically didn't really account for, well, that the public would eventually just figure out that the moon landing was fake and that the low quality was not going to be able to mask it forever, right?
Well,
it's a similar situation.
No, good point, Arwen, but it's a little bit even more detailed when Andrew Thomas Young, a subject matter expert on refraction, says all of his refraction calculations were done on a flat plane. Well, if you're doing all your refraction calculations on a flat plane, how could you say anything otherwise? Oh, but then he adds this caveat. But we know the Earth isn't flat, exclamation point. So now he goes into this belief of a dingleberry, takes what he did off of a flat plane and says, by adding geometric considerations, we could bend that baby and we can make it fit a sphere model. So everything that they do in reality is from a flat plane, and then they have to take geometric considerations for their standard refraction.
So they take
but
the
that
flat
would-
Earth and bend it into
that would-
a 39.
Can I say something short? In other words, you know it's curved because you have to calculate it flat.
What I was saying is, so they take a flat Earth and they bend it into a 3959 ball. That's what they do.
Well, no, Andrew Thomas Young is stating there is that he doesn't have a clue what terrestrial refraction is. Because he's doing all his refraction calculations across a flat plane. Then he's saying, because we know the Earth is a globe, we need to take geometric consideration.
That's a bait and switch.
But what has that? Yeah. What has it got to do with terrestrial refraction? It means
Nothing.
it means that nothing, because that's an actual change it's a physical change in the physical globe you would stand on.
Yeah,
The size of
saying
it.
here's my
So,
suitcase
not
full of
refraction.
here's my suitcase full of refraction effects. We've studied them greatly and closely. They were all studied on a flat Earth. Now that we know how these refraction effects operate, and we know Earth's a sphere, we can put that into a translation of the R value that basically expands out the size of the globe that we're going to say is what you see. And we're going to call that refraction, just like the refraction on that suitcase I just closed and put behind me. Now I'm going to close this suitcase with an expansion of the globe radius at 7/6R and hand it to you, and check out what it says on the front of the suitcase. It says refraction. On the back it says terrestrial/standard/atmospheric. And you go, okay, so it's refraction then. Thanks very much for the suitcase. You say you studied all of this. Wasn't the stuff you studied in the other suitcase though? Shh. Off you go. Be
In
gone.
the early days,
Wow.
excellent summary there. In the early days, it was due to perspective, and that's how they fooled people. And as Arwen pointed out, they didn't realize technology would be in the hands of everyday ordinary people with a P900 or 1000 or anything similar to that, and you'll be able to see that, hey, it's just optical and it's just perspective. It's the convergence. And so they hijack perspective, and I think you have a saying for that. Do you not, Nathan?
If I do, you'll have to remind me, or maybe you can say it.
The
Hyena.
hyenas.
Yeah, the hyena. Come on.
I haven't got anything to contextualize it around. We're not looking at a photo. I've left Simon Down's stupid face on this slide for too long.
The clock. The
The
clock.
slightly
Yeah, the
looming
clock.
non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of a clock from behind the reified physical geometric sphere edge horizon. That.
Well done. Well
Yes.
done. Okay, now they say parallel lines meet at infinity. Well, they're no longer parallel lines, are they? So the whole point is they don't actually meet at infinity, and they even admit they don't. But they have to admit to perspective. So they say, well, parallel lines starting from you here, by the time they hit the celestial sphere, infinity, meet. No, they don't, because you say in the other sentence, parallel lines actually don't meet. So what you're describing is perspective.
So, start the show saying, let's be concise. 23 minutes into the live show. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Wait a second. We're
The
moving now.
universe is spinning, not the Earth.
Just to go back to the last question. Sorry. Not to carry on, just a bit of good news. I was just trying to go through my Twitter feed there. I strolled across a very well liked Twitter feed yesterday, Nathan, and it was some guy filming a flat earther only has to see a clock tower at 20 miles. And then you go through what a ball earther has to describe it as.
You
And this
really want me
bloke-
to? You want me to give this example?
No, I'm just saying this is something you was on about TikToking and stuff like this. Well, this was a Twitter link that nothing to do with you. Somebody's done that, put it onto TikTok, and then it's been pumped around on Twitter. I was just trying to look for it of that video while somebody's watching it, laughing their head off as they then get to the way a baller has to describe it.
So
just
let me
getting
get
out there,
straight.
mate.
Somebody's put a reaction video of a trimmed out clip that
Nice.
I've done where I summarise a baller having to have the description of a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of a clock from behind the physical reified edge of a sphere edge, and a flat earther going, shush clock. And their reaction to that, laughing at it, is on TikTok.
Laughing
Wonderful.
at what a baller's got to do. Yeah, but somebody's done it on TikTok, and that's got popular on TikTok, and then somebody's turned it into a tweet on Twitter the link to the video.
Nice.
Cool. Very good. Yeah, if you can dig me out a link, I'd love to see it.
Just been annoying. I couldn't find it. I caught it yesterday. But I will. I'll try and find it because they keep popping up in my timeline. These things. There's quite a few guys out
Word's getting out there.
there.
Excellent. What about any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No. Next.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Hmm.
Over there.
This-
Next.
We got an angular distance.
What?
How'd you get that?
Hold on. No, you're missing one of the aspects, Tarvin. If you're going to use that word, angular distance, I'm assuming I know what you mean by that. What were the aspects of the mathematics you used to get a quote-unquote angular distance?
No, I literally just like tried to ram the two words angular and distance together to fix it.
No, but they
it
can go
doesn't work.
together. They can go together. They can. You know, out the whole Al-Biruni shtick that we use against them in terms of, well, you'll need a flat Earth for that. But that you can summarise as angular distance if you want. He's using angles to get a distance. In this case, distance is up, the height. But it's still, you can still mush those two words together if you can justify them. You're just not doing it. Maybe Adam's going to help you out mathematically.
How
I
you
don't
going
know.
to do it with the
You
sun
would,
now?
look, in order to compare angular distances, you would need to know either the actual distance or the actual size. But we don't know either. So you could never have that.
Good job.
So
Thank
you
you,
have-
Alwyn.
Not honestly,
That's what
only
I'm
through
saying.
presupposition.
Alwyn's got
So
there.
you
That's what I
have-
wanted from him. Thank you, Alwyn.
It's like
So
having a
you're-
volumetric length. It doesn't make any sense.
You what?
An angular distance makes no sense to me.
Calculating a distance
Manual.
from an angle. Obviously, it's not a coherent sentence that Arwin's trying to achieve there. He's trying to achieve the opposite. In fact, he's trying to convolute. But I'm trying to say that no, you could go forth if you hear this convoluted word scramble and justify it with an explanation. But Arwin chose to say, actually, no, I can't because I don't have the componentry required to give this an explanation in ball earth terms when talking about distances to the sun. And he's right.
And what is
Correct.
that componentry?
It's called ramgular distance.
The
The
distance to
only
the
way in
sun?
which you can use it is within celestial navigation, where the coangles has a relative distance assigned to it from your position or the GP. But I say that's using it within celestial navigation. Within math, it doesn't make any sense, does it? It's a misuse of the word.
And on that note, Adam, what is the highest number you subtract from?
Don't mention it.
90.
Shh, don't say 90. So they already know that you need 90. And 90 can never work on a sphere surface.
Oh dear. Next.
Any
In all
scientific...
fairness, there's no actual distance to the sun. We have angles. We have angles in relation to observers on the Earth, and we have an apparent angular size, but it doesn't really seem to be changing about any of the celestials over, well, presumed distance. So, yeah, there might not be a distance to it, an actual one.
I think Brian's logic already answered this. If you have the same angle to the sun on the day shot, and you have the same angle to Polaris at a night shot, are the distances the same according to their distance that they give us?
No, because they presuppose sizes on top of all that.
Well, no, at the end of that, then.
Just yeah, their distances, right, only start with the shadows. Their sun had to be really big, much bigger, have a much bigger diameter than a globe, and be far enough away to match the angular size we see, because otherwise shadows won't work on their model. They can't have a close local sun because the shadows will prove it's flat. You see, the shadows have to be able to work on the sphere. So the sun has to be way bigger in diameter, but it also has to be far enough away to match the angular size. But what I just one more time said there, what I said there recently was, if I get a 45-degree angle to the sun today, and I get a 45-degree angle to a star tonight, that means that the GP point of both of them are the same distance from my boat, right? Or my plane or whatever. But how does that make the stars further than the sun, or the sun closer than the stars? How can they be further if I can get the same exact distance further than each other, or have one further than the other, or whatever? If I can get the same exact distance, GP point to both of them. If you think about it, it's like it makes them all the same distance.
It's just
That's
not
why-
applicable, though, is it? That's what I was saying. It's just nonsense. I think Arwin was kind of alluding to an application of trigonometry. If you had another side length, you could use that angle to apply trigonometry to it. But I think we recognise that this isn't trigonometry we're doing. So like I say, the only way you can have an angular distance to me is in celestial navigation, where it does relate to the GPs of the celestial object. But the important thing you see is that that's relating to the distance from the viewer to a GP, not the distance directly to the celestial object, just its GP.
Yes, but think about it. How can the celestial object, how can a star be further than the sun, yet its GP be the same distance at the same angle?
Because that's what we don't know, how the heavens plays out. It's not within celestial navigation, that claim's not there. It's only within heliocentric theory that's stated as an obvious fact. One's 93 and the other's a infinite. That's not a necessary claim in celestial navigation. In fact, it's denied, isn't it?
But that's where I'm working off. Like they say they're at an infinite distance. Infinite can also mean they have no distance, if you understand what I mean. Because if the GP point is the same distance from me, and when I take an angle to two different, doesn't matter what they are, just the sun and whatever star, and a 45-degree angle, and I get the same distance to the GP point. How can one be further than the other? If the star was further than the sun, then how am I going to get it? It doesn't make any sense. It's like they have no distance, and saying they have an infinite distance is the only way maybe you could get around it, because they have no distance.
How did you measure the angle to begin with?
That's where I was going.
What do you mean?
Well, you're measuring angles to these things, right? How do we measure the angle to begin with?
With a sextant.
Let's just ask the question. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
No. And let me add to John's point and to remark to what Adam and Brian were commenting on, because they all link together. When we first started this, and we all started looking into this, what was the first attack on us after they said, shh, don't say 90 and all the other garbage?
You don't understand.
Yes, that's true. What else did they say?
You're
never use a
retarded.
sextant.
Die. You should never have children.
Too late.
That
So
you never use the sextant, right?
that's right. And then what else? And I'll bring it here if no one guesses it. What's the most current one?
Well, they've all got degrees in navigation now, haven't they?
Oh yeah, instantly, right? That's right, Adam. All right, so I'll just get to it. Yeah, they say, well, then you should know the distance if it's triangulation. Remember that one?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Okay, and then I would cite their own books, their own experts saying they don't do it for height. They don't do it for the distance that the sun. It's not for that. It's for the co-altitude and the GP of the sun or the star to the GP of the observer. That's what it does. It's an angular function for them in celestial navigation only. And the highest number is 90. So now bring it back to Brian's point is that how'd they get that? Well, it's flat Earth angle measurements to Polaris, perfectly suited for the equator where you don't see it anymore on their model. And then they make a dingleberry around it. This is such a bait and switch. It is such a trick that we have uncovered it through celestial navigation, where their own experts say it's not for distances from Earth to the sun, but to get the angle so that you know how far on the ground you are from the GP or subpoint of that star when it's directly over the Earth at that year, that month, that day, that hour, that second, which they have in the book for thousands of years in the past to match thousands of years in the future. In fact, you can buy a copy that shows you every mark of these things, 57 navigational stars, adding up to 64 total from the year 2000 to 2050. How do they know all this? If we're moving and it's exploded and it's going in all directions, how is this repeating every single time? And why is the peephole in the pyramids in South America as well as Egypt have the sun come right through it every time the date they know it's coming through it?
Because it's on a cycle.
Yeah, it repeats itself, just like Genesis says, for times and seasons. That's why it was made.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, I heard a golfer say the other day when one of my putts came in sideways on the hole, which is very rare. Gravity. No. It can't be gravity because Einstein said it's the bending of space-time. So it was the bending of space-time that caused that ball to go in.
No. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
I have no idea. Okay, next question.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core? Thanks, Mr. deGrasse
Wait
Tyson.
a second. What was that guy's reply, Tent, when you said that? Your fellow golfer.
No, I told Nathan that's what I'm going to say next time because
Okay.
no, I told
Sorry.
Nathan in the pre-show that the next time that happened, because normally I'd say, "What's gravity?" Okay, but I just met these golfers, so I'm going to play with them again next week. So it's going to be the next time he says it. Well, it's just going to be the same thing because when I used to say, "What's gravity?" they just look at you. Well, you know, and I go, "No, I don't know. Tell me." So when I say bending of space-time the next time, it's going to be like, "What are you talking about?" They don't know. The normies don't know.
About that
But it's
molten
gonna
iron
be the
core.
same-
Do they know about that?
Get him with.
Molten iron core? Anybody?
I was
you're-
just going to suggest an option for 10. You
Thank
could
you.
say bending of space-time. Give them the option. Say, what do you mean gravity? Bending of space-time or spooky action at a distance?
I love it. Spooky. I'll throw that in too. Well, it came in at a magic speed at the side of the hole.
Okay, so about that molten iron core. Any evidence that we have a molten iron core at the centre of the presupposed spherical Earth we bend at 7/6R?
You still trying to get this done in 20 minutes?
They're
No.
still working on it. They keep on trying new P waves and S waves techniques, but they haven't gotten there yet.
You'll need a flat Earth for
Well,
those.
The new technique is an ionic liquid layer, I think. I'd have to look it up. I'll look it up for another day, but I'm sure the new thing is a form
not
of
just ionic.
ionized layer that
It's super,
Go on, Creation
not
Bear.
just ionic, it's super ionic.
was. But it'd have to be, wouldn't it? Yeah, I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know. It's just better than ionic.
Like a turbo ionic.
Just roll with it.
It's a GTI molten iron core.
Remember that back in the 80s, everything was turbo.
Hmm.
Aftershave, it's turbo.
Yeah.
Right, shout out to Goldie. It says, big love from South Florida. Thank you very much. That is all. And then palm trees and hearts. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Did we get to any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? I asked it. I don't know if I got any answers.
No,
He said
they,
that.
It's impossible in their respective fields. I mean, the individuals could probably devise a viable hypothesis, but they could not apply it to their field because those
In
fields
science, we always
demand
say that you make observations.
presuppositional based assumptions. So can't do it.
Well,
The
this is- they-
dulcet
they
tones of
can't
Michiu
vary it,
Kaku.
can
Hold on
they?
1 second, guys. What was that from Michiu Kaku?
In science, we always say that you make observations, you have a theory, you go make more observations, and it's a very, very tedious process. Wrong. Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
I guess we don't have any hypotheses from you then, Michiu. That's a shame. Any evidence of the R value? Earth radius?
You're gonna need a flat plane for that.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure, like we'll breathe, without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon? And as we've
Negative.
got another Simon Dan screen, we might as well use him as our example. Here we have clouds and such. Yeah. Now, beyond those clouds and such, if we just focus on this layer here, right, what we've got is high pressure gas. That's what's claimed this picture is of, next to a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum. Now, if the sky was, as depicted here, and claimed to be, a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill the space.
You can't test it. We're in a system where there is gas pressure, thus contained, as per natural law. Well, we can't, or we don't know how to escape that predicament in order to be able to test whether it is possible without a container.
Can anybody answer why it's necessary to apply a transformative equation like the Haversine formula if the Earth is already a sphere?
I am working on it, but I don't have an answer yet.
Your
I,
orders,
I have,
But it's certainly not
your orders are
it's
always
certainly
followed.
not to
And
relate to the-
Santiago was
the
not to be
surface.
touched. Then why was it necessary to transfer Santiago off the base?
I'll answer it from the celestial navigation books. Because the vertex of the angle is coming from the equatorial plane. And then it's projected back from the celestial sphere to an arc, as if a protractor's arc, if you could imagine that. And they make that the surface between 2 points.
See, that's what I think they're doing, Tamp. Doing that calculation in the sky, which they pretend is on the Earth, but it's that angular change between the great circles you create between the 2 points that the I see this. I'm still not sure because it's really complicated.
Well, it's, let me see if I can give you something, because I'm in between my move and everything, I'm still researching more. But here's a meridian is now the full great circle. A meridian is the equator to the North Pole. It's 90 degrees. It's within that framework that they do it. So we're back to 90 again. And we're looking at a protractor, and we're seeing the baseline of a protractor, and then we're seeing the arc of the protractor. And what's 90? That's your zenith. What's the base? That's your zero line. That's the equatorial plane. And so they cut the sphere in half, and they say, here's the angle from that baseline, which is flat Earth. And then they project it out to the arc of the protractor. But the way they do it is they say it projects to the celestial sphere, and then from the celestial sphere, it's projected back to the arc of that protractor, and there's your 2 points. That's the transformative formula that Haversine does for them.
Now, Phil B disagrees. He says the Haversine formula calculates distances on a sphere, nothing to do with flat anything. Thanks for your input, Phil.
I'd like to challenge Phil. And how did you get the angular how did you get the angle in the first place, Phil? Where'd you get?
Oh.
Did you get it from the curved baseline of that sphere, or did you go to the equatorial plane where it's flat, where nobody's at?
You know he can't get it from the curved baseline. He had to go there.
Well, of course, because their equatorial plane is the plane we live on.
Okay, speaking of Phil, that concludes the housekeeping. So in the pre-show, we were discussing people's objections to our refinement of housekeeping. So as it stands, there's a few little changes going on, a little tweaks here and there. Little tweak here and there, I should say. For example, we discussed the requirement for an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. That's a relatively new housekeeping question. Further to that, there's several points that have been added into all housekeeping questions, as in the requirement for a flat Earth to have the angle return signal when you're talking about P waves and S waves. Again, these little refinements are sparks flying up a very sharp knife that we're refining on an almost daily basis. Don't get me wrong, some days there are no refinements happening for whatever reason. But generally speaking, that's what's happening. We're at the wheel, there's sparks flying everywhere, and we're sharpening up the knife. There's another housekeeping question as a third example, just to make the point absolutely clear, in regards to John's question that we just covered with Phil Bell. I'm going somewhere with this, by the way. So, asking why there's a transformative equation being applied to anything if the Earth's already spherical is going to eventually be refined into something that can get rattled off and never get, through within 5 minutes in the beginning of the show as it was originally intended with housekeeping. But it might get refined into a question that actually gets asked in the same way each day. So these aren't like us standing still or sitting on our laurels or whatever the phrase is when it comes to the show and how it's developed. We're constantly refining these arguments. Anyway, there's going to be a certain section of the people watching that are like, I've watched that, I understand the arguments. Yeah, I get it. Al Bruni needed a... I'm not going to repeat what I did in the pre-show. And that I'll save that. Go and watch the pre-show if you want that little spiel that I was about to launch into, but I won't. The point is that if you are one of those people and you're like, no, I'd much rather watch the knife go through a fundy when they assert some nonsense that annoys me, or that I have to defend in comments, or whatever it is that is your reasoning for wanting us to take apart a fundy live. I get it. Now, there's always going to be a certain ebb and flow to the show, but that's something that you, which is where I'm going with this, can influence directly. Now, it is, I don't know from my metrics, typically the case that if a fundy joins, that is going to be the point that most people hit the share button and go, I know, I'll share this. Because this has got my adrenaline pumping. This has got me excited. Obviously, you're more inclined to share it, right? Yeah, that's fine. That's wonderful. I don't want anybody to stop doing that. But it's sharing these shows, the ones that are a refinement on housekeeping, a discussion internally about the ether, whatever it is that is not necessarily a fundy having their head taken off. That is the kind of show that next man in line will benefit from in an educational way. But as a direct consequence of you sharing it to that man, there might be a different next man that sees it and objects to what we're saying live and appreciates that he can join and will, because there's a link below to I was about to say Discord, to Gilded, where there's a public gateway. Now, frankly, I don't care what that public gateway is, be it Discord, it was originally Google Hangouts, then it was Meet, now it's Gilded. Whatever the public gateway is irrelevant, so long as somebody's got the means to come on. But they have to see that, whatever it has been now, we're coming up to 50 minutes, a very calm discussion about how Earth has got to be flat when you're acquiring an elevation angle measurements. Somebody's going to hear that and go, hang on a second, no, they're definitely navigating it spherical. I want to correct them. But they're only going to come if you click that share button. Because the show numbers, we haven't even topped 100 viewers on this show, which tells me that those people, they need to be spoken to. I need to address them. I need to speak to you if you're that person. Now, that's what I'm doing. In case you hadn't picked up on it, I'm not being subtle. Right? You can directly influence whether or not there's people having their heads taken off with the knife that we tend to be refining by sharing the shows that don't necessarily have that beheading in the show. I.e., that's what encourages, and I say it every single introduction, the purpose of me saying share the show isn't necessarily just to get me to say, oh no, there's only 96 people watching. Oh, it'd be much better if there was 150. Yeah, and there probably would be if we were pummeling a fundy, but that's catch-22. You've got to share the show to get the guy who hasn't seen the show before to come along and object and want to correct us. Because that's all this is. We're just baiting people when we're refining our blade. You know, oh yeah, you're sharpening your knife. Doesn't mean you can put it through me. Yeah? What about boats and buildings? Getting blocked by the horizon, muppet. Yeah? Then they find out how sharp the blade is, don't they? But if you're objecting, as there are people currently doing, to the repetitive nature of refining a blade, yeah? You've got to understand that without that refinement, it wouldn't be a sharp blade, first and foremost. But that's what baits people in. Watching the guy sharpening the blade, you just assume he's not very good at wielding it because he's the guy sharpening it, right? Well, they find out different, don't they? If you share the show, I'll point at this little ramble. Smash the share button if you're that person. Well, this isn't what I want. I don't want to see you talking about how I understand the Earth to be flat and how it's measured flat, how it's navigated flat, and how they build on it flat. I want to see you correct somebody live. Share the show. You'll get that person here.
All right. So I challenge Phil Bell right now to stop being a chat skank warrior to come on the show. He's always there saying we're wrong. Well, he can come on the show and he can have a one-on-one with any of us.
You're a salesman.
Show,
You've
Phil.
appealed to her. As a salesman, I feel bad that you said that. No. What's his need? As a salesperson, that's the first thing you need to establish. I already know why he's here. He's here for his own deluded pain relief that he spews into the chat. So he doesn't want to come and challenge you and actually be proven wrong live. That's not on his wish list. Come on.
I didn't have my... come on, Nathan. I didn't have my salesman hat on when I said that. I'm this retired farmer who read celestial navigation books and listened to your show for a few years and learned other fine arguments against his position that he keeps saying in chat that we're wrong. So come and whether it's Brian's Logic, Adam, myself, you, or anyone else, come on the show instead of hiding in chat. What's to be afraid of a farmer who's retired?
Yeah, you crazy flat earth farmer. No, Phil Bell's a professor. It's beneath him.
Says, why does flat earth need degrees for longitude and latitude? Well, Phil B, come on and ask us that question. We're right here.
As I say, you can interact with Phil from the chat skanking chats peanut gallery.
It's a Cartesian laced question, Brian.
What was his question? Sorry, I just missed
Why
that.
does flat earth need degrees for longitude and latitude?
They're based off of flat. My God, where does the latitude and longitude grid come from, Phil?
I don't know, Brian. I don't know where the latitude and longitude come from. Maybe you could tell us.
Yeah, the flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. That's what gives us our latitude and longitude positions. You can't get that on a globe. Remember, the globe's horizon is supposed to be refracted at a rate of 7/6 of the radius, which is a physical changing in the actual size of the physical globe, which means none of we use that exact horizon to get the exact latitude and longitude positions. But that's where your radius comes from. It comes from, it's derived from flat Earth elevations angles to Polaris, which means that you can't use a 7/6 radius to get the correct latitude and longitude degrees, placements on the globe, because it has to not have 7/6R for that to ever even work mathematically. Why do you think that works on your globe? It has nothing to do with the globe.
Can't get elevation angle measurements from a curved surface. Woohoo! Over 100 people watching. Massive shout out to all of you. Smash the share button. Please share the show if you haven't done so already.
If your horizon is being claimed to be refracted, then you will not have latitude and longitude positions. You'll have longitude up to a point, but you won't have latitude. The longitude will eventually not work either when you go south of the equator, but latitudes won't work with 7/6R. It can't. It's impossible. Your globe is too big. But they work perfectly all the time using the sea horizon and a flat plane.
Plug. So on both Brian's Logic channel and this channel where it was originally aired, Brian does a full presentation on this. It's Flat Earth Debate Special Edition with Brian's Logic, or whatever Brian titled it on his own channel, which you should subscribe to today. So Brian, if you plug your own presentation that you mirrored, because then hopefully someone will spam it in the link and they can go and subscribe to you immediately, as they should have done so already. How dare they?
Thanks, Nathan. I just, when I hear that, it's just like, I'm sorry, it makes me irate. It's like, are you somebody that does no learning or does no personal thinking for yourself at all? I mean,
you
how
can't
can
teach an
you
old dog new
claim?
tricks.
Phil Bell is
Yeah.
pretty old, so I
It
mean,
means,
come on.
it means it's not nothing to do with age. It means he doesn't do any personal thinking for himself whatsoever. He doesn't use logic when it comes to these matters whatsoever. He might use logic all day with everyday things, but when it comes to this, he doesn't have any use of logic.
Why does that
There's no
enrage you?
thought goes into it.
Shouldn't you just pity him?
Well, he's sticking to his model.
He never needed logic before to get through, so he's just doing what's been working for him his entire life.
Yeah,
Hold on.
can't
By
teach
the
an
way,
old
can I
dog
have
new
a peek
tricks.
at that model?
Sorry, Neil, I rumpushed you, saying you can't teach an old dog new
I
tricks.
just said, can I have a peek at that model? And he claims that you have to have a professional globe, okay, and then you could do celestial navigation with a professional globe.
No,
No,
they
I
need an
can get an ordnance survey map from my newsagent and post office and a million other places.
They need an equatorial plane, which they later do a transformative equation to make into a dingleberry.
Ordnance survey, Google Earth, they all show it mapped out flat. Just go and see for yourself. Draw out an elevation profile in Google Earth. Draw it across the entire world, and it'll show you reference to zero, how high or low things are on a flat plane.
Let me tell you how consensus science is so strong with Bill Bell. I can't remember a time in my life, especially the first time I brought it up, to this day, that I changed my mind on this. Water at rest is level. I argued that point with my teacher when I was in grade school. And you all know what he said. I don't even believe it. I just have to teach it. Bill Bell, you've been teaching this junk. Are you going to be as honest as that teacher, that you're programmed to do so, or you might lose your job if you start telling the truth? What's going on here? We know water at rest is level. That's why it's called sea level, zero. That's the zero. That's how you measure the height of a mountain. You use sea level. It's got to be zero.
You like my thumbnail, by the way? I posted it in Masturbators. Refraction! No? I thought it was good. I'm on it now. I've got capabilities to actually make a thumbnail while a live show is being produced. So yeah. The other thing that's happened recently is the transition to Gilded. And, the popularity of Discord meant such that there was plenty of people who already were on Discord that are like, oh, I can just join that server. I mean, for me, I don't use either, and I couldn't care less what the gateway is, but obviously it does have an effect on how much passing trade you get through the server itself, because there's going to be a tertiary dude that's already in Discord. But if he's already in Discord, he's probably already a chat troll anyway. You know what I mean? Not that everyone in Discord's
Nathan,
chat trolls, but...
Nathan, the pictures of a turkey. Turkeys don't say "burgak," they say
refraction. What was it supposed to be then, if not a turkey?
A chicken.
A chicken?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why I pictured turkey. But
Yeah,
in my mind,
turkey
it's
doesn't
turkey
make that
saying refraction.
noise.
I thought the point of it is it's just wiki parroting. So it'd be refraction. I thought it was a parrot.
Yeah, but parrots
It
don't
is a
really make that
parrot.
noise either. It's
It
really,
is a
it's a chicken
parrot.
thing.
No, it's not. It's a parrot.
Yes,
No,
nice
it's a
pun.
chicken.
Nice pun, Neil.
I
No,
literally
they parrot it.
I hear birds downstairs here talk about refraction on a daily basis. Those
Okay,
are
but what do
chickens.
parrots do? They repeat what they hear.
Yes, we get
Yeah, but
the
that's not what
parroting
they do
aspect of
among
it, Neil. Thank
themselves,
you.
though.
However,
They make beep, beep, beep noises.
Wow, this is getting really... Look, may I just comment on what you said earlier, Nathan? There are people who show up to the show for entertainment. They miss the bashing of the Globehead days, yeah, but they got their head so bashed in, they don't want to come back in. Like, that's why I believe Phil doesn't want to come and talk to us live. Number two, if you're here along the similar reasons I'm here, is to learn good arguments and then go use them with people and see how they work in the public when the opportunity presents itself. And that's where you get your greatest joy, is when you actually use the arguments. And then you come and tell your stories here, which help others see that they can do it. There's nothing to be afraid of or, suspect, because these are great arguments and you're just asking questions from people who've been brainwashed all their whole life. And it depends why people come to your show. If they come here for entertainment, they're missing the bashing of the heads. But if they come here to learn, they're being equipped to go out and use it, then they can come in and share. And then the people they share with, if any of them wake up, they're going to join your show. So it's that kind of a show for me.
And the moral is, of course, please share the show. But with that, I'm going to say, first and foremost, a huge, enormous thank you to both G Plus and Gilded Panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming stream, stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Another massive thank you to all of you who tuned in live, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on an after show, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!